And even people can become made of frustration, they can become desperate. But we have to remember, especially in Krishna consciousness, there is also another aspect. It's a family life. And then Srila Prabhupada says it can also be helpful, this ashram of family life, for the Krishna consciousness of the couple. Every, the lady or the man, they're just serving each other in a mood of spiritual friendship. And of course, they can give birth to wonderful Vaishnav. We remember that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that sex life that is actually according to religious principle. And even our wonderful Acharya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was such a strict brahmachari from birth, said, actually, if I could produce pure devotees, I would have sex life 100 times. So now we are going to read these 10 verses, and it will specifically address the first description, entanglement of attraction between men and women. Because in this age of Kali, we have to listen over in Srimad Bhagavatam to be careful in our spiritual journey. So I start with Srimad Bhagavatam, the 9, Canto, 14th chapter, and text 10. So I will just say what the Sanskrit, if you want, so you can repeat. Tatyacha viditatara. Tatyacha viditatara. Kumaram kanaka prabham.
Kumaram kanaka prabham.
Spriham angira sarshakri.
Spriham angira sarshakri.
Kumari soma evacha.
Kumari soma evacha.
Allez, tu read.
Tatyaja vriditatara.
Tatyacha vriditatara.
Kumaram kanaka prabham.
Kumaram kanaka prabham.
Spriham angira sarshakri.
Spriham angira sarshakri.
Kumare soma evacha.
Kumari soma evacha.
Tatyaj vriditatara.
Tatyaj vriditatara.
Kumaram kanaka prabham.
Kumaram kanaka prabham.
Spriham angira saschakre.
Spriham angira sarshakri.
Kumare soma evacha.
Kumari soma evacha. Tatyaja vriditatara. Kumaram kanaka prabham. Spriham angira sarshakri. Kumari soma evacha. Synonyms. Tatyaja gave delivery. Vridita, being very much ashamed. Tara, the wife of Brihaspati. Kumaram, to child. Kanaka Prabham, having a body effulgence like gold. Spriham, aspiration. Angira Saha, Brihaspati. Chakre, maid. Kumari, unto the child. Somaha, the moon god. Eva, indeed. Cha, also Translation, His Divine Grace e si Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Shukadeva Swami continued by Brihaspati's order. Tara, who was very much ashamed, immediately gave birth to the child, who was very beautiful, with a golden bodily hue. Both Brihaspati and the mood god, Soma, desired the beautiful child. So I guess you have read all the previous text. You remember the previous text. So you remember that actually Soma, the moon god, kidnapped the wife of Brihaspati. And then she was rescued. She came back to her husband, Brihaspati, but then she was expecting a child. And Brihaspati ordered his wife Tara to give birth to the child. She was very much ashamed, and the child came. Very, very beautiful child. So, text 11. Fighting again broke out between Brihaspati and the moon god, both of whom claimed, "This is my child, not yours." All the saints and demigods present asked Tara whose child the newborn baby actually was. But because she was ashamed, she could not immediately answer. 12. The child then became very angry. So we actually, in the realm of the demigod, and the children, as soon as they are born, they can speak. Even the pregnancy is not the same as in this world. So the child comes out, he wants to know who is his father. He became very angry and demanded that his mother immediately tell the truth. And he's really strong, a little baby, he says, "You unchaste woman, what is the use of your unnecessary shame? Why do you not admit your fault? Immediately tell me about your faulty behavior." Can you imagine a new young baby chastising like that his mother? 13. Lord Brahma then brought Tara to a secluded place, and after pacifying her, he asked to whom the child actually belonged. She replied very slowly, "This is the son of Soma, the moon god." Then the moon god immediately took charge of the child. 14. Oh, Maharaj Parikshit, when Lord Brahma saw that the child was deeply intelligent, he gave the child the name Buddha. Buddha from Buddhi, intelligence. The moon god, the ruler of the stars, enjoyed great jubilation because of his son. Text 15, 16. Thereafter, from Buddha, through the womb of Ila, a son was born named Pururava, who was described in the beginning of the 9th canto. When his beauty, personal qualities, magnanimity, behavior, wealth, and power were described by Narada in the court of Lord Indra, the celestial woman Urvasi was attracted to him. Pierced by the arrow of Cupid, she thus approached him. So that's why devotees, we don't want to be attracted to the heavenly planets, because there is a lot of danger in the heavenly planets. Everybody is so beautiful, and the lady is so beautiful, we cannot imagine. The man so strong. So it's very, very dangerous to develop pure bhakti. We need the mercy of the devotees. So Urvasi, she's one of the most beautiful denizens of heaven. And now she's attracted to that king. He is a king, Pururava. Text 15:18. Having been cursed by Mitra and Varuna, the celestial woman Urvasi had acquired the habits of a human being. Therefore, upon seeing Pururava, the best of males, whose beauty resembled that of Cupid, she controlled herself and then approached him. When King Pururava saw Urvasi, his eyes became jubilant in the ecstasy of joy, and the hairs of his body stood on end. With mild, pleasing word, he spoke to her as follows. So we can see this is a material ecstasy. Usually, when we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see the symptoms of ecstasy of Lord Chaitanya. The same hairs stood on hand, ecstasy of joy. But this is a completely material ecstasy. And unfortunately, that ecstasy will bring only distress. And we can see here that how all this attraction comes. It comes because of our material senses. Here the eyes, this King Pururava, just by the eyes, by the vision of that heavenly beauty, is losing his mind, is losing his intelligence. And that reminds us of the beautiful story of Suridas. I think it was Suridas. He had that lusty approach to ladies, and after some time he tried to be renounced, and he walked and he saw a beautiful lady, and he started to following her. So she hurried up, she went to her house where her husband was. And then he came in the house. And that is actually civilization of the past. The husband welcomed the guest and asked, what would you like? And he said, very frankly, he said, actually, I want to be one-to-one with your wife. And that wonderful Vedic civilization, although it must have been very painful for the husband and very painful for the wife, the husband called his wife and he explained the situation. He said, get ready to fulfill the desire of our honored guest. So the lady went, she made herself very beautiful, and she went in the bedroom. Then that man told the lady to actually turn, and he could see the back of the lady. And then he asked her to undo her hair.
You're hearing tapping on the...
Oh, Krishna, Krishna. Like that? Yeah. Okay. So she was facing him from the back. Then he took the pin, you remember the story. He took the pin in her hair and he actually plugged his eyes. He took his eyes out. So he could be blind. He couldn't be attracted by that senses of vision. So now the king Pururava didn't plug his eyes out, and he's just in ecstasy. So he is talking to Urvasi. He says, "Oh, most beautiful woman, you are welcome. Please sit here and tell me what I can do for you. You may enjoy with me as long as you desire." And he's very direct. He says, let us pass our life happily in a sexual relationship. Then we are going to go to the last verse. Urvasi replied, "O most handsome man, who is the woman whose mind and sight will not be attracted by you?" She's also very direct. If a woman takes shelter of your chest, it's a very broad chest, she cannot refuse to enjoy with you in a sexual relationship. So that's the beginning of the relationship, which actually you're going to read later, to study later, is going to be very painful for the king. He's going to become mad because he's going to lose Urvasi. Prabhupada gives a short purport. When a beautiful man and a beautiful woman unite together and embrace one another, how within these three worlds can they check their sexual relationship? Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam 7.9.45 says, Yan matunadi griyamedi sukami tucham. So we are going to read the text. I won't read the Sanskrit, the translation. So if you want to look at that verse, 7.9.45. Sex life is compared to the rubbing of two hands to relieve an itch. Kriyamedi, so-called Vyastra, who have no spiritual knowledge, think that this itching is the greatest platform of happiness, although actually it is a source of distress. The Kripana, the fools, who are just the opposite of the Brahmana, are not satisfied by repeated sensuous enjoyment. Those who are Dhira, however, who are sober and who tolerate this itching, are not subjected to the suffering of fool and rascal. Then Prabhupada gives a purport. Materialists think that sexual indulgence is the greatest happiness in this material world, and therefore they make elaborate plans to satisfy their senses, especially the genitals. This is generally found everywhere, and specifically found in the Western world, where there are regular arrangements to satisfy sex life in different ways. Actually, however, this has not made anyone happy. And Prabhupada speaks about the hippies, because at that time in the 70s, it was free everything. No rules, no regulation. Free love, free speech, free everything. Until Prabhupada came, and the people who came to 26 Second Avenue, they became so much attached to Srila Prabhupada. They loved him so much. Then when he put a little A4 paper on the wall, written in his hand, the 4 regulative principles, of course they were shocked. It was against the hippie culture. But they loved Prabhupada so much, okay, we will follow. So even the hippies who have given up all the materialistic comforts of their fathers and grandfathers cannot give up the sensational happiness of sex life. Such persons are described here as Kripana, misers. The human form of life is a great asset, for in this life one can fulfill the goal of existence. Unfortunately, however, because of a lack of education and culture, people are victimized by the false happiness of sex life. Prahlad Maharaj, therefore, advises one not to be misled by this civilization of sense gratification, and especially not by sex life. Rather, one should be sober, avoid sense gratification, and be Krishna conscious. The lusty person, who is compared to a foolish miser, never gets happiness by sense gratification. The influence of material nature is very difficult to surpass. But as stated by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 7:14, Mameva ye prapadayante mayavetam talantite. If one voluntarily submits to the lotus feet of Krishna, he can be saved very easily. In reference to the low-grade happiness of sex life, Yamunacharya says in this connection, somebody wants to read the Sanskrit?
Yadavadi mama chita Krishna padaravinde naranara sadama nijatarantu masit tadavadi vatanari samyavismayamami bhavati mukha vikara sushtamishtivanam cha.
So that's Yamunacharya, who became renounced before he had a very opulent life. But he says, since I've been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing every new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought, and my lips curl with distaste. Oh yeah, here it says, Prabhupada says, Yamunacharya had formerly been a great king who enjoyed sexual happiness in various ways. But since he later engaged himself in the service of the Lord, he enjoyed spiritual bliss and hated to think of sex life. If sexual thoughts came to him, he would spit with disgust. So, as we were discussing before, that attraction between men and women can lead us in two directions. It can lead us into material entanglement, or a regulated family life can help us to progress in spiritual life and actually serve Krishna together, men and women. And when Krishna is in the center, that attraction, sexual attraction, diminishes. But as we said here, it's the first option that is actually emphasized. So, yes, Urvasi, first she was captivated by King Pulurava's beauty, and therefore she lived, we are going to read in the next verses, she lived with him for some time. But then there was some arrangement by the demigods. He made some mistake, and then she left his company, and he became practically like a madman. He was not thinking of his duty as a king anymore. He became like crazy, like an animal. So again, one verse on the topic. You probably know Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Verse 8. Same mood of translation by Srila Prabhupada. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, but not only to the body. Then comes the expansion of the body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in the term of I and mine. Purport. Sex serves as the natural attraction between men and women. And when they are married, their relationship becomes more involved. Due to the entangling relationship between men and women, there is a sense of illusion whereby one thinks, this man is my husband, or this woman is my wife. This is called Hridaya Granthi, the hard knot in the heart. This knot is very difficult to undo. Even though a man and woman separate, either for the principle of Varnashram Dharma or simply to get a divorce. In any case, the man always thinks of the woman and the woman always thinks of the man. Thus, a person becomes materially attached to family, property, and children, although all these are temporary. The possessor, unfortunately, identifies with his property and wealth. Sometimes, even after renunciation, one becomes attached to a temple or to a few things that constitute the property of a sannyasi. But such attachment is not as strong as family attachment. The attachment to the family is the strongest illusion. In the Satya Samhita it is stated, Pramantya Yagyavankantya Muchyante Stri Saha Yinaha Bodhyante Kitchanaite Sham Vishisham Chavidu Vidul. Sometimes it is found amongst exalted personalities like Lord Brahma that the wife and children are not a cause for bondage. On the contrary, the wife actually helps further spiritual life and liberation. Nonetheless, more people are bound by the knots of marital relationship, and consequently, they forget their relationship with Krishna. So the devotees, even when devotees become very, very advanced, sannyasi, guru, leaders, since that attraction can still be present in the mind, although they are completely renunciated. And there is a beautiful Vyasapuja offering of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I don't know if you're in connection. It's very, very beautiful. It shows that it's actually very hard to overcome. And even very, very advanced devotees are struggling for that. So it's a beautiful text, very honest, very beautiful. Our dear Bhakti Tirtha Swami says, tomorrow I must meet Srila Prabhupada. Today is the last day of my life. Tomorrow I must meet Srila Prabhupada. What will I say to him? What will he say to me? I will say to Srila Prabhupada, I'm Ganeshyam Das. That was his name before sannyas, Ganeshyam. The one who distributed your sets of books to the academic communities. He went all over the world, even in the communist countries, to distribute Srila Prabhupada books in universities. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire for me? I will say, I've never broken any of the regulative principles, and I've faithfully chanted over 16 rounds every single day since I joined the movement, never once missing. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire? I will say, I've maintained a program of fasting all day on every Ekadasi, normally from liquids and all foods for most of my life as a devotee. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire for me? I will say, I also maintain a program of eating mainly once a day for most of my life as a devotee. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire for me? I will say, I, for most of my devotional life, maintain sleeping less than 6 hours each day. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire for me? I will say, Srila Prabhupada, I faithfully read all your books and I'm trying to distribute them in many countries when there is neither paper nor printing presses available. And Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, my son, but have you given up sex desire? I will say, I persevered as your GBC member, responsible for the largest number of countries, about 50, which happened to be the poorest in the world. You know, he was preaching in Africa, Western Africa. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but how about the sex desire? I will speak about my cultivating a few heads of state and a few diplomats and big businessmen. Yeah, but I was talking to the presidents of America, to the kings of Africa, to very important people. And he was preaching so nicely that in Africa, the kings of the different tribes, they wanted to surrender to him, to take him as spiritual master. But the custom was, as a king, if you surrender to someone else, you're not a king anymore. So what they did, they made him the emperor. He became the emperor, so all the kings, they could surrender to him. So, and he was friend with that wonderful soul, Nelson Mandela. Yeah. He really preached to him. Nelson Mandela loved Srila Prabhupada. And when he was in, Robben Island? When he was in the camp, in the jail, he had a very small cell. People can visit. And he didn't become crazy because he learned Bhagavad Gita by heart. One of his friends from the ANC, the movement for liberation of the black people, one of his friends was a Hindu, and he knew Bhagavad Gita by heart. So Nelson Mandela learned Bhagavad Gita. So first time Bhakti saw Nelson Mandela in South Africa, in Durban. He saw Nelson Mandela going down in front of Srila Prabhupada and quoting a verse from Bhagavad Gita. Yes, how do you know? Then he was told. And he cultivated so many people. He was so expert. Srila Prabhupada would say, this is very, very good, but how about the sex desire? I will give a report on the number of temples I've opened, and the number of devotees and new disciples I've made. Then I will notice Srila Prabhupada's voice becoming even more penetrated as he chastised me, just as he did the very last time I was with him before he left the planet. This is all by Krishna's mercy and not ours. And today that chastisement has a full meaning for me. You were telling me, Srila Prabhupada, then, and even more so now, that I must give up this sex desire, subtle and gross. So I'm going to skip a part because it's very long, and I'm going to the conclusion. So he's talking how hard it is to get free of that sex desire. Then he says, most of us will not become really serious until major catastrophes hit us directly in the face. But how can I talk when I now hear you saying to me with deep compassion but with sadness, you cannot come with me. Still, you are possessing sex desire? So Maharaj is saying, as you walk away, my pain is unbearable. As I reflect on the pain I have, and I'm giving you, by my imperfect state, my own pain increasing that more. I scream, crying out of anguish. Please forgive me, please help me, please don't leave me. Then I remember I still have a few hours to surrender everything to you. As today I die, and tomorrow I must meet you. I'm the insignificant beggar who is quickly running out of time. But by your mercy, I have this last chance to make the greatest offering, to offer you myself in an uncontaminated state, free of all sex desire, so as to be a perfect instrument for your mission. So I found that was very beautiful, that offering to Srila Prabhupada. And so I will stop here, just reminding the other aspect of family life in Krishna consciousness. It can be very glorious, and I'm very happy here to see in this temple that the brahmachari are very balanced, very, very kind, very, not criticizing the householder, very protective and kind also to the Mataji. So you're really, really well situated. And as an example of successful family life, we have these three mythical couples who Prabhupada sent to London. Yamuna, Gurudas, Shyamsundar, Marati, Mukunda, and Janaki. They were householders, they were quite young devotees, and they achieved what the sannyasi of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur couldn't do when they went to Europe. By Krishna's arrangement, they met George from the Beatles, and all England